love in this space where there's so much debauchery. So I came up at the Daily News when Brian Burwell and Rob Parker were in the newsroom. I was there,
And
the
you know,
third black person.
I do a radio show with
I
Rob.
know. I listened to it. I
Yeah.
listened
And
to
I
it.
know
I
you
listened
know
to it.
Stephen A. I mean, all you know, I know you were in sports, so we know a lot of the same people, like you said.
Yeah, but being there, and then it was Curtis Bunn, who's but it was wild to me how sometimes the writers took on the, like after the Nets games, everybody would go to Hula Hands, and then it would be like the groupies there, I mean, like the cheerleaders, and then the writers and the players were like, I was like, what's happening? But you've always kind of been this guy that you march by a different beat than what was happening, and that was the '90s. Which today the kids seem a lot different though.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for me, I live a different lifestyle. I live a Christian lifestyle. I became a Christian in my senior year at Oberlin College at 21 years old. So Jewel Woods, most of his time knowing me, I was kind of out there too. But that changed my whole mentality, my whole worldview. So I wasn't out there chasing women, trying to live the NBA lifestyle. I've been married in June 3rd. In a couple of weeks, it'll be 29 years. Have two
Wow.
daughters, twin daughters who are 26. And so, but I get along with all these brothers, that may have been out there like that. I mean, Rob and I, the whole shtick of our show is that it's called The Odd Couple. And he's hanging out at strip clubs and I'm hanging out at church. So but we're great friends. And so I think particularly, Karen, for this day and age in America, where so many people have different viewpoints and religious views and everything, we just have to realize we're a pluralistic society and we have to respect some people we're not going to agree with. Some people aren't going to applaud us for the way we think or what we do, but we can still respectfully, work beside each other and be friends and co-workers and so on and so forth.
Has that hampered your ability? Because a lot of the early, like the late '80s, early '90s journalism, it was about access to the athletes. Now today, the athletes have their own platform. So I'm like, sports reporters are in trouble because they
They
don't
don't
have to
need
talk to you. They don't need you. They don't care about you. They will talk about you. So
it.
places like ESPN are trying to bring more of them in, but their own podcasts are doing much better numbers than even the network. So
Yeah.
I'm like, this is a new day for you. How have you been able to navigate this business
Well,
operating with the integrity that you do?
yeah, you asked, has it hampered me? I've always obviously been able to relate to the players, young black men. When I started covering NBA, I think I was 26. So that enables you to relate to cats. But, and I've broken my share of stories and had good relationships, but I haven't been one to, rap with the players about all the women, the groupies, and you know what I'm saying? So I don't know, in a sense, has that hurt me? Maybe. But as far as maneuvering this space, um, I've been fortunate to, like, my career, like at my age, I'm one of the few guys that's on television in the debate space, and even in the radio. Rob and I, we believe we're the first two African American men to co-host a radio show, a national radio show that's all over the country. And so I've, as you mentioned, I started out as a writer, high school sports, then went to the NBA, then went to ESPN. And when I was at ESPN, I was writing for the magazine. But over time, as I began to do more television, it morphed into where by the time I left ESPN in 2016, I was mainly a TV personality. So now that I'm at Fox, I went to Fox Sports 1 in 2016. I haven't written a word since then. Now I just do
What?
television. I do my television show daily, First Things First, and then my radio show with Rob Parker. So I loved writing, but writing, it can be painful. I was one, I labored, I took it seriously. I used to joke with some of the other black writers, we used to compare it to hip hop. Like I'm trying to be Rakim or Nas, I'm trying to really craft bars, And so that's what I did, but that can be painful because you labor over your words so much. But yeah, I love the space I'm in. The reason I left ESPN was because they wanted to keep me in the reporter's role. And Fox wanted me more as a commentator and opinionist and somebody. So now it's like being a columnist at a newspaper, but doing it on television. So I've kind of gone from beat writer to columnist on television. And this is much better because, like you said, players have their own platforms. They don't need us. But as a commentator and opinionist, I don't need them either. I still talk to guys, but I can, you know what I mean? I can just talk about them whether they talk to me or not. So it works both ways.
Well, also, it seems like we have more access to each other, even when we don't want it, than ever now, right? With social media. So you can just cover the stuff they say about themselves. You know, like you don't need to go interview Draymond Green. Draymond Green's interviewing himself 2 or 3 times a week, giving you some spicy quote to react to on your show, and it kind of feeds into itself. Do you find any difference in this approach that the players have where they're like considering themselves the new media as compared to, you know, the classic traditional media? Are you finding that there's a real separation or difference between their approach and the approach that at the networks?
Oh yeah, like Rob Parker really gets upset about it. Now he has a journalism master's from Columbia. He teaches sports writing at USC, so he's really into it. And he gets upset because on their podcast, the athletes generally don't push back on one another. So if you're doing a podcast and one player says, yeah, I think Paul George is better than LeBron. Now, in a lot of cases, I'm just throwing that out, but in a lot of cases, the players might be, oh, wow, okay, cool. Whereas the natural pushback is, hold up, what? What are you talking about? You know, and so Rob is constantly complaining about you don't get the full story, you don't get the pushback from the athletes. But I say that's true. But what I do like is that you get to see the athletes in their own space and their natural, like as writers, what I was trying to do when I interviewed an athlete, I always was trying to get them to be comfortable and to not give cliche quotes and just, okay, I'm speaking to the media, let me have my guard up. I wanted them to just be their normal selves and then convey that to the audience or the readers. And you get that in the podcast. Right. Like when Kevin Garnett's with Paul Pierce or what, you know, they're just being their natural selves. They cussing, they talking like they would in the locker room. They're not worried about, you know, coming off a certain way for the media. But that tells you, that shows you what they're really like. So I think there's a real value in that. So I like what they're doing. It is a little different from what we do, but you know, there's space for all of us.
Do you feel the animosity too? Because like, I feel like the new media thing is also a little bit of animosity towards the old media, where it's like, y'all ain't doing it right. We're going to show you how to do it. And I'm not gonna lie, I miss a little bit of the conflict because I do like the pushback. I do think the media has a job to fact check and to be there in the space to say, hey, that thing you just said, you need to explain that a little bit more. So I kind of miss that a little bit.
Well, no, that's why I said you can listen to both because they're not journalists. They're in the media space now, but they're not journalists. They're not doing investigative reporting. They're not probing. They're just talking, which is cool. There's a space for that. But you still have to go to the real journalists if you want to get some pushback and another side of the story and something like that. But the thing is, too, athletes, they don't like being criticized, which is normal. I mean,
who likes being criticized?
I'm totally. I say this to Rob. Rob will jump on. I'm like, don't nobody like being criticized, you know?
Right.
But they used to say, "Oh, y'all didn't play in the NBA. You don't know what you're talking about," you know, and try to play the player card on you. But if you notice, they don't like being criticized by Charles Barkley,
right,
Shaquille O'Neal, Kendrick Perkins. They just don't like criticism, period. It's not whether you played or not. And so that's where I think maybe the animosity can come from. But you know what's happening? They're criticizing.
Yes.
They're criticizing other players too. Because what I do on television and the radio and what they're doing on their podcast it's like you in the barbershop
Mhm.
debating who's better between Michael and LeBron. We're just doing it on national television or radio. And so we have to answer for it. Hey, I might see LeBron at a game or see, somebody, and you have to answer for it. Whereas when you in the barbershop on your couch, you can spout all this stuff and never see a player and not have to answer for it. So
I am kind of looking forward to our first podcast fight. Like where like Draymond Green sees Pat Bev and like we just the gloves come off. Like we think it's a basketball fight, but we find out, oh no, it's because of episode 7. You gotta go back and listen.
Well, that does make it interesting for the guys that still play, that have podcasts and are players, current players, because you really have to answer for the stuff you say.
Yeah, so, like Rudy Gobert might owe Draymond a discussion at least next time they see each other. It's getting kind of slanderous out there.
Yeah. I don't think Draymond's worried about Rudy.
It don't seem like it.
Hardcore. Right, I don't know, but I think
don't underestimate Rudy Gobert is patient zero. He spread COVID to the entire NBA. He is not to be messed with. Don't underestimate Rudy for real. All right. 866-801-8255.